what is being done, is being politicized, and these religious angles are given. It is very important to put the facts out.
Right.
Sadly, it's being done by all sections of this media, with very few notable exceptions. Now, I'll just read out the names of the other 20 who are in custody and who have been denied bail. And on a lighter note, apart from the a few other minority communities, they are from pretty much all the faiths. So now the counter argument could be that why not people from other communities, right? So you
Yes.
have Arbaz merchant, you have Munmun Dhamecha, you have Mohak Jaiswal, you have Vikrant Chokar, you have Nuprut Satija, Gomit Chopra, Ishmeet Singh, Abdul Kadir, Shreyas Nair, Manish Rajgiri, Avin Sahu, Gopal Anand, Samir Sehgal, Manav Singhal, Bhaskar Arora, Achit Kumar, Sinedi Igwe, a Nigerian national, Shivraj Ramdas, Okaro Uzemo, again a Nigerian national.
Good evening, namaste, and welcome to Citti Media. My name is Sharan Citti, and I'll be your host for tonight. We've all seen over the last 2 weeks, and we've heard about Aryan Khan's arrest. Now, there is a major drug angle to Bollywood that is being discussed in the Indian media, and the NCB seems to be very interested about this. But unfortunately, this is also being politicized and is being given a communal angle. And we have Khalid Baig with us today to discuss this. Khalid ji, namaste. Thank you so much for joining us.
Namaste, Sharon. Thank you for having me here.
Khalid, let me ask you my first question. What has transpired so far in the drug case that we're hearing about? Because there have been a lot of developments and it seems to be a very dynamic case. Could you give our viewers a clarity as to what we know as of this point?
Sure. So, Sharon, with all these accusations, counter accusations, narratives that are floating around in the media, with various ideological groups wanting to give a particular perception to the viewers. So the most important thing is when it comes to facts, right? I mean, they do not care about what the narratives are, right? So it's important to brief the youth, especially of India, because we have a 35 crore plus population under the age of 18, who are trying to make sense of what's happening.
Right.
So we start off with the sequence of events and facts, right? Narcotics Control Bureau, which is the premier organization of Indian government, one of our pride, of India when it comes to busting the drug trade, the very dangerous drug trade. They got a tip off that one of a luxury cruise liner, which was sailing from Goa to Mumbai, had a rave party in which hard drugs were being, used.
Right.
So once they got a tip off, they went in there, they disguised themselves as customers, and once they busted the rave party, to their surprise as well and to their shock, they chanced upon the son of possibly one of the most famous Indians in the world, and one of the most famous movie stars, right? So that got the media very interested in this, because that comes with the terrain. The highs of any public figure are very high, the lows are very low, and that got the interest. And with the prime accused, the charge sheet reads that there have been 13 grams of cocaine, and there have been 22 pills of MDMA, which is also called as ecstasy, and other hard drugs, which are very dangerous, not only for the person, but the society per se. Now, this should also be a lesson for the youth, that, the procedural systems which everybody in India gets, they should not be, brainwashed by the communists who tell them there is nothing left here in the judicial system. So the process as it happens, him along with the other people who are caught, the superstar's son, got they got their lawyer, they got their defense lawyer, the state put up its prosecution lawyer, and
Right.
you had, them appealing their arguments based on the evidence which the NCB had, and the accused also got access, right? And what is being done, is being politicized, and these religious angles are given. It is very important to put the facts out.
Right.
Sadly, it's being done by all sections of this media, with very few notable exceptions. Now, I'll just read out the names of the other 20 who are in custody and who have been denied bail. And on a lighter note, apart from the a few other minority communities, they are from pretty much all the faiths. So now the counter argument could be that why not people from other communities, right? So you
Yes.
have Arbaz merchant, you have Munmun Dhamecha, you have Mohak Jaiswal, you have Vikrant Chokar, you have Nuprut Satija, Gomit Chopra, Ishmeet Singh, Abdul Kadir, Shreyas Nair, Manish Rajgiri, Avin Sahu, Gopal Anand, Samir Sehgal, Manav Singhal, Bhaskar Arora, Achit Kumar, Sinedi Igwe, a Nigerian national, Shivraj Ramdas, Okaro Uzemo, again a Nigerian national, right? So
Right.
these are the people, along with the superstars, eldest son, who are currently in custody. So that is where, Sharon, we are currently at the, that is where the case right now is.
Right. Now, having established the fact that this is a safely secular case, what some sections of Bollywood says is that they're being targeted because A, it's a distractionary measure, that it's easier to target Bollywood people because it will make news all over the world and in India, and also because they are a part of a particular elite, an influential elite, who are easily prone to being targeted by such agencies.
Well, it's I disagree with that argument, because that's the terrain of public life. As I said, right, you will be elevated to the status of a god level in this country, especially in movies,
Right.
and especially that scrutiny and that the people wanting to know you will also fall into that category. But this is not the first case. I would like to take back the viewers to a case of 2003 in a place like Dubai, UAE. UAE and Singapore are model countries which have actually clamped down on hard drugs, right? And in fact, we should learn that how they've done that, and all those things. And you had a son of a famous car designer at that time. You had a grandson of a movie producer, and you had a son of an influential politician caught there.
Right.
You can, viewers can Google this up in the Gulf Times, and all those links are there. Not only that, you had, I remember maybe a decade back, you had a known Bollywood star, Aryan Khan. He was caught with cocaine, and his father, late Feroz Khan, came out and seeked apology, and then he went for rehab. You also have famous actors like Sanjay Dutt, whose drug addiction and then his battle, where she won finally, is known to people. There have been movies made on it, and he has requested the youth that it's a death trap, it's a hell hole, and they should not take these hard drugs.
Right.
Last year, you saw in the case of the mysterious death of one of the Sushant Singh Rajput, and you had the Riya Chakravarti angle, and that came in. Even right now, as we speak, there's a lesser-known Bollywood star called Arman Kohli, who is in judicial custody for the charges of consumption of banned drugs. You also
Right.
have a TV star called Bharati Singh, who was there. You had cases of Rahul Mahajan. We have a very short-term memory in our country, and I guess his secretary had died with the overdose on those lines. So that is a wrong assertion. I mean, if you're in any sector, especially if you are in the public viewing and the celebrity, the curiosity will be there. Of course, it doesn't need to be
Right.
trivialized. It doesn't need to be sensationalized, which I give it to them. That is very wrong. That is some other kind of drug our news channels, are feeding in. But there's a article of India Today. It's a 2012 based article in which India Today does this coverage of where they speak about cocaine and how it is referred to as white snow, and how in the so-called elite high societies of Bombay it is now become a status symbol, sadly. So it's a cultural issue also we are dealing. And in that, then they speak about how this drug is like given in these hi-fi parties. So you cannot paint this soft target thing. You're a part of the very society, right? So you will be judged as any other equal citizen. And again, I'm saying it's wrong to generalize any industry, but it is also wrong to say that no, we are beyond critique in this. There needs to be a balanced kind of view on that. And
Right.
what also the thing is that linked with these hard drugs, what the news channels should have done, which they haven't done, but rather they have trivialized it, and they are just constantly showing the 23-year-old, and they're not giving them any sense of dignity in that sense. and hence trivializing the larger issues. When you look at the hard drug industry, it is linked with terror money, it is linked with blood money, it is linked with crime syndicates. So,
Yes.
the youth should know that hard drug sniff that you're taking, they might not know it, but at least know the fact that the way the money trail of it works, the same 23-year-old of you who's taking it in some big city of India, especially in Mumbai, which the NCB of all the organizations is called the cocaine capital of India,
Right.
is linked to the death of that same 23-year-old soldier who's standing on the border for your freedom. So
Yes.
please do understand. And it's a pity that I don't remember anybody doing this kind of, coverage on this, except I remember the New Indian by Aarti Tikku Singh covered and, just spoke the facts. But I hope they elaborate on that section. So this is another angle of where global terror, is linked to these things. Obviously, the youth don't know it, and it's not that they are responsible, but they should know that it is much larger, and wish news channels had concentrated on these major aspects.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And it's a very fair assessment because, especially given the fact that we are very well aware of how terror organizations in places like Afghanistan use production of drugs as a source to supply arms and ammunitions to itself, is a fact that is very well known. You don't have to be a geopolitical analyst to know all these things. So, that amount of sympathy or the attempts to make this a trivial issue doesn't definitely apply to a place like Bollywood. It's a very fair assessment, I would say. Now, Khalid, one more name that is coming out and is in the news these days is that of Mr. Samir Wankhede. What can you tell us more about him? Because he seems to be at the crux of the whole investigation.
Right. So, see, it's so unfortunate the way our mainstream media works. Instead of the attention that they have focused on a 23-year-old for the TRPs, instead of educating people, the youth, that it's a collective issue of the society. There is a cultural issue where it is seen as as if you arrived in the elite circles, which is a very flawed way of life. And second, where you are saying, no, what's the big deal in all this, and you're mixing the culture of soft drugs with hard drugs and abortability and all.
Right.
Have they even given 5% coverage to the heroics of Mr. Samir Wankhede, who's fighting drugs for India? Talking about the NCB zonal director at the position he is. Do they even know that last year, what was the coverage that was given, that he of all the people was attacked by drug mafia? Can you believe that?
Yes.
And this should have outraged the nation. This should have shown the threat that he's working at, right? Or his honesty record of previously working with another premier organization like the National Investigative Agency. And
Right.
I remember anecdote where the 2011 World Cup trophy uh, was coming to India, and he didn't let it off customs because they had to pay the custom money, right? So to not focus on these things, to not focus on and another thing, right? So the other day they were saying that we give what the audience wants, but you never told them in the last 2 years under his leadership, hard drugs were 20,000 crores were confiscated in 2 years,
Right.
right? And that could have shown people that the kind of warfare the enemy states are against, because there are two ways to go against state. You have enemy, right, who's your sworn enemy. You go against them on the borders, against their soldiers, soldier to soldier, or you infuse drugs into the system.
Yes.
So it is unfortunate. It's a failure of huge sections of mainstream media, and it's sad that Samir Wankhede, people don't even they're not even being told his role in it, right? So
Right.
that's what
It's a
his.
major part of asymmetric warfare, and you're right, and youth are falling prey to it. Now, I want to address one very important angle that is being introduced by our so-called opinion makers. They are communalizing this issue by saying that Aryan Khan is being targeted because of his faiths and
Mhm.
because of his father's faith. What do you
Mhm.
have to say about this?
Well, as I explained to you, the facts state the contrary, right? I mean, it's not because of that, and it's very interesting that ultimately, as a public figure and being one of the most popular Indians, uh, every side apparently would want to use him, right? So the ones who are using him are the same people that he gets trolled by since the last 1 decade, when he has the Ganesh Chaturthi rituals in his home. It's an open, you can check it, Google. He's the most one of the most famous movie stars in the world. At that time, he's not Muslim enough for them, right? And I remember a decade back, when he was asked a question about the debate at that time about intolerant India, how his words were misconstrued, right? He spoke about the fact that if you are not secular enough, you're not a patriot, and it applied to all communities, right? I mean, here's a person whose public life is personal life is known to everyone, his marriage to someone not from his faith, and the way he's generally brought up his kids, and his his comments on religion. In fact, to all these people, actually, I would quote Shah Rukh Khan himself, to which once the intolerant debate happened 7 years back, and you had these vultures masquerading as these journalists, and you had some voices from across the border who are terror voices telling him, why don't you come here? And he gave a very good rebuttal, and I would like to quote Shah Rukh, where he said, I would like to tell all those who are offering me unsolicited advice that we in India are extremely safe and happy. We have an amazing democratic, free, and secular way of life. We have no safety issues in the environs of my country, India. It is irksome for me to clarify this non-existent issue. So to both the sides of the extreme, one who's trying to bring up the religious identity to play their politics, and the other side, which is just now because of the identity and his fame, wanting to pull him down with all these boycott calls, and giving him a guilty verdict by just sheer association. That is his answer. So there you have it in his own words. And you know ultimately the sense of balance is missing. You ultimately people like Shah Rukh, Sachin, who have defined the 90s and even beyond that, they are beyond religion for the average Indian. When the Muslim kid picks up the bat and wants to bat like Sachin, he's not thinking about his religion. When the Hindu kid wants to be the next Rahul like Shah Rukh, he's not thinking about his religion. They are beyond religion, not beyond critique. But please, let's have that kind of dignity to people who brought laurels to the country, who themselves don't see themselves as in these faiths. They've gone beyond that, and that is the symbolic um, statement by India. So that is what I would like to say. And at the end of the day, please stop concentrating on the 23-year-old. I'm not saying that you don't be critical about it, but you need not be overtly offensive, overtly defensive about it. He's a father at the end of the day, right? As I said, he is an emotion for India. So all those questions are ridiculous. You don't even need to entertain them, right? He's answered it for you. So that dignity he deserves for a person who has entertained for 30 years, who, you go to so many countries, and he's the star who everybody wants to appropriate. And he's worn his Indianness on his sleeve, right? The country has been great to him and celebrated him, but so has he. So when you get trolled by both sides of the extreme, then I think it's just the place he is where, right now they're just fulfilling their political agendas. It is important the people come out and take on these, extremes, because majority of India is not like that. I'll just tell you a small anecdote. I was just walking in my society, and my watchman, he's a big IPL fan. So I was just saying, so who are you supporting today? And he said, I'm a Shah Rukh fan, and I love KKR. And he said also, I'm feeling bad. His son is currently in jail. That's India. He is not filled with all this poison. He doesn't know what the case is and all that. So leave all that to the judiciary, but concentrate on the larger angles. And whoever is bringing in this religion issue, show them their place and just move on, and work on the larger things that this issue can help us solve. For example, the larger international drug terror networks, which even UN has spoken about.
Now, Khalid, you bring up the topic of the United Nations, and the UN has been putting a lot of efforts to curb the use, supply, and manufacture of drugs around the world. Now, what could you tell us more about this, on what the UN has to say?
Right. So, see, not many people know this. I mean, it's such a big world menace and it affects all the 200 nation states in various capacities that you have the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, a separate department altogether. And many years back, with many of the conferences, I'll just give an example of one of the conferences. Somewhere in 2007, it had members, it had USA, it had Turkey, Colombia. And you had the spokesperson of the senior most spokesperson of prevention of terrorism. I think the lady was Ayrka Kulesh, and she spoke about how the opium drug trade in Afghanistan is an industry of $3.1 billion, right?
Yes.
We're talking about 2007, and since then it must have risen at least double. And here is how dangerous it is. And she spoke about how crime syndicates, organized crime syndicates, which are involved in child trafficking, which are involved in prostitution, which are involved in human trafficking, drug trafficking, are linked and interconnected with these global terror organizations, right? And Madrid terror bombings, which happened a decade or two back, such is the confluence between these two that they were not paid in money, they were paid in drugs. Was the drugs was the exchange of funds that happened. This is how lethal it is. And to stress more on it, we had Syed Akbaruddin sir, who was one of our finest diplomats at United Nations. He raised an appeal in 2019 in United Nations, appealing to the United Nations that our neighboring state is harboring those very elements who have now direct links, and they are inseparable from terror elements, and they're using all this drug money for terror attacks. And and he said, I quote him, that in an interconnected world, the menace of these two syndicates is inseparable now.
Yes.
So this is the issue we are looking at. And you tell me, how many channels are discussing this?
Right.
And educating the youth?
Yes. Thank you so much for your comments about this. It's been very insightful. And viewers, please do let us know what you think about what Khalid has to say. And it is interesting because after all, some people are saying that KKR's victory is a symbol of poetic justice or something. But on that note, we will conclude. But this case we will be following on Citti Media, and we will be bringing you weekly updates as and when Aryan Khan's hearing comes up next. Khalid, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out of your busy schedule. I hope you can join us again for a follow-up on this.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Pat.
And to all our viewers, please do like, share, and subscribe to Citti Media. My name is Sharan Citti, signing off.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.